Hello and welcome to Real Living. We are going to continue speaking about Lent. It's one of those infinite subjects. I mean, we really could be speaking about Lent for the duration.
We could do a lot of shows, but I'm afraid since we did so many shows on Gaudeum or Evangelii Gaudeum that we need to kind of shorten this one.
Or it could be part of your penance for Lent.
Yes, it's true. That redemptive suffering we're always talking about.
You know, you all could like offer up hearing us talk about Lent. The first thing I want to say is obviously today is the feast of one of our favorite pairs of Saints Perpetua and Felicity. Ladies who were martyred in the persecution in northern Africa at the beginning of the 3rd century. So a long time ago. The good thing that we know about Felicity and Perpetua is that they, there's some contemporaneous descriptions of their martyrdom.
Right, exactly.
Called the Acts of Felicity and Perpetua, and you can get them in Latin. I mean, you can read a contemporaneous account of what's going on. Perpetua and Felicity, one of them was a noblewoman, one of them was a slave or a servant. One of them was pregnant in jail, and they actually waited for her to have her baby before they sent her out into the arena to be eaten by wild animals, which is what the penalty was for the Christians at the time.
And her father came to the prison to beg her to change and not, you know, give up her life since she has this new baby. And she made her choice that God was going to be first.
Well, in their story, you know, the Acts of Felicity and Perpetua also describe how they would go around consoling their fellow prisoners who, like other Christians in the jail. And when you think about the jails of the time, if you've ever seen 1st century jails, at least that we can see the Mamertine prison in Rome, which is where Peter was put and Paul, there were places where you couldn't really stand up. I mean, there were dank dungeons where everybody was kind of like on the floor.
Is that the one over by the Forum?
Yes, the Mamertine, the Mamertine prison. So, I mean, it's an example. We did see examples of prisons in the Holy Land as well. You know, the cell where they probably held Jesus below the house of Caiaphas. Remember that? So we're not talking about jail cells the way you would think about today with a television and a cot and a sink. You know? This is very different. And yet you have Perpetua and Felicity calling one another on to holiness. And I think they had a friend with them called Saturus, I think his name was, and he's one of the guys who was with them, who was one of their fellow Christians who called them on to holiness. And we have descriptions of the martyrdom where they were put into the arena and they were singing, and they were in ecstasy, really, you know. Which, and as we know, the root of the word ecstasy, as far as it applies to a religious ecstasy, is you are outside of time. You are outside of yourself. Ecstasis. You are standing somewhere else, so that time goes by like that. So, and that would happen when you are communing with the eternal.
Exactly. When
you are seeing the Lord, right? So. Eventually they were eaten, you know, they were, you know, mauled to death by these animals, but they had to like go up and make the animals do it because apparently they weren't.
Wasn't one killed by a soldier? Because the animal would not, the lion would not touch her.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
and she helped him slit her neck.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Point the dagger. Exactly. So, I mean, you know, like I said, that's one of those deals where you get the ticket when you board the train, you know? You get the grace when you need it, because we look at that kind of stuff and we're like, are you kidding me? You know, how could that possibly be?
Sure.
But this is one of those, you know, you can actually Google Acts of Felicity and Perpetua on the internet and just look up the story. Look up, if you can, look up the English translation of the Acts, because it's not very long. But it's just so inspiring. So this is, I think, a very appropriate day for the first Friday in Lent.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yes.
You know, just to have those two
example
ladies look after us, you know. So we're going to continue talking about Lent. You know, obviously one of the main centerpieces of Lent needs to be the source and summit of our worship, which is the liturgy, the Eucharist. And you found some wonderful quotations about the importance of the Masses said by different saints. So why don't you give some examples?
Well, a favorite is from St. Padre Pio. It would be easier for the world to survive without the sun than to do without Holy Mass.
That's right.
You know, Mother Teresa, or St. Teresa, this is. Once St. Teresa was overwhelmed with God's goodness and asked our Lord, "How can I thank you?" Our Lord replied, "Attend one Mass.
Mhm.
Think about the power of that, and all the angels and saints that are there. Pope Paul VI said the Mass is the most perfect form of prayer. And there's one about having a Mass said for you while you are alive. This is it, St. Anselm. A single Mass offered for oneself during life may be worth more than 1,000 celebrated for the same intention
Really?
after death.
Oh, that's cool.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So I was telling you before we started recording that I'm trying to figure out, you know, what to do each day or each week for Lent, and not just be contained in, oh gosh, I just need to give up candy or not eat between meals. So I get these cards from the St. Norbertine, the Norbertine Fathers, and there were some nice cards for St. Patrick's Day. And you send those to people you care for, and they will say a Mass on behalf of them. So I thought, well, you know, you're always going to give them a donation in order to do that. And I thought, wouldn't that be fun just to fill out those cards and send them off to people that would not expect receiving anything like that? And then to read this quote and think, gosh, that's really, I wish someone would do that for me, you know? We tend to forget how powerful the Mass is. And if we could really see what's going on without, you know, to be on the other side of the veil, we would be on our faces. We would just, as you said, in ecstasy, that's where we would be. It's so powerful.
Heaven comes to earth. I mean, that's what we believe, you know, and it's, you might hear people hearing this saying, well, okay, the last Mass I went to didn't feel like heaven on earth. You know, there's the kid who's screaming his little guts out, and then there's, the, you know, somebody in front of you chewing gum, and then there's somebody coming in late and leaving early, and then there's, you know, somebody dressed like they're going to the beach. And
they're chewing gum and, you know,
all that.
Yeah, they're
and
very
maybe,
distracted.
And maybe the homily is not, you know, excellent, and maybe the music is a little off, and so it's easy to become critics, you know. First of all, you're distracted, then all of a sudden you're like grading things, you know, well, I give it a 7, or I give it a 4, or this was awful, or this was great, you know. As if the Lord of the universe, as he presents the mystery of the Eucharist, needs our commentary. You know, it's so presumptuous.
Well, and you know, we just have to really concentrate and ask for the grace to concentrate. You know, we keep relying on ourselves, and this is the great thing about Lent. Lent is telling us you cannot rely on yourselves. This is why you have to shed all this stuff so that you can see God, hear God, listen to God, whatever it may be, and really make some headway in your relationship with the Lord. And that's what we're all striving for.
Absolutely. So there's various lists of things that we can remember as we go through Lent. This is from Bishop David Ricken of Green Bay, who offers 10 things to remember for Lent. I like this. Number 12, remember the formula. The Church does a good job capturing certain truths with easy to remember lists and formulas. There's 10 commandments, there's 7 sacraments, 3 persons in the Trinity. For Lent, the Church gives us almost a slogan: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, as the 3 things we need to do and to work on during the season. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Prayer, we've been talking about the Liturgy of the Eucharist, which is our highest form of prayer.
You know, could you go to Mass 1 extra day a week, perhaps? You know?
Exactly.
Is there something that you can do that would increase your prayer life? Is there a rosary and, you know, a daily rosary maybe? Who knows? However the Lord leads you.
Or go to adoration.
Oh, yes.
You know, you don't have to wait to have an hourly adoration. You can go by and do the little drive-by, you know,
Yeah,
10
stop
minutes.
in,
Just
say
visit.
hello.
Just say hi, you know, which just grounds your day, I think, even more. So prayer and fasting. And we know, you know, you can fast by giving stuff up, but you can also fast by adding things, you know, by adding a discipline, by disciplining your flesh in certain ways. You know, the flesh is not only your stomach.
Right.
The flesh can be your marathon viewing of television or of stuff online.
I heard that Archbishop Fulton Sheen had a terrible time with fasting, you know, giving things up. So he struggled with that a whole lot. So what he did is he had an hour of adoration every day. He could do that. He says, I'm not very good at the fasting stuff, but I can do that every day. And he did. And I think there was one story, and I think I had heard Leo Brown on the radio talking about him, and he was in an airport, and in between flights, I guess there was a chapel there. And the Eucharist must have been there. Can you imagine?
No.
So, you know, I don't know the circumstances, but, you know, he made it. or he would get up very early in the morning or late at night, whatever it was. But that's, you know, he was fasting from other things to spend that hour with the Lord. You can look at it that way.
And you know, we don't have to only fast from food. We can fast from critical thoughts. We can fast from, you know, from certain ways of expression that might not be less than holy. You know, we can fast from judging people in our hearts, but also judging people in our words. We can fast from complaining. We can fast from gossiping. We can fast. I mean, there's so many ways, really, in which we can brush ourselves off a little bit more, right? Exercise.
Please shorten the list a little bit.
Right. But see, I think what's important too is to realize that I think I've read somewhere that it takes 6 weeks to form a habit.
Yes.
So really, the habits that you form during Lent
Repetitive.
is something that you are, in a way, grooving into your very soul.
Right. Yeah.
And they're good things.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It may even change you. It may carry over after Lent. Who knows?
Well, that's the idea, right? Fasting and then almsgiving. And what does almsgiving mean? Almsgiving means give out of your need. Don't just give out of your surplus. Give until it hurts. And what does that mean? Not only give your money and your resources, obviously in our rich society, but give of your time. Give of your effort, of your concern, of your smile, of your investment in one other person. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm always trying to make sure that I have time for the people on the fringes, the people who come up to me and they want to see if I'm busy and they're not going to talk to me if I'm busy. You know, I'm like, I always want to turn towards that kind of person because I want to give my time, because what would the Lord have done?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You can't, the minute you start brushing people off intentionally, of course, it can happen unintentionally, okay?
Sure.
But the minute you start doing that, then you're saying you're not as important as the thing that I have to do next.
You know, when we were in the leaders meeting and there was a question that related to this, the example was given that, you know, when you go and buy canned goods and you know you're going to be giving away, don't buy the no brand. Buy what you would serve yourself.
Words to